Okay. Well, I enjoyed your video, Pyro. Um, Wanted to respond to a couple things, just make some comments, not disagreeing with anything really, just adding some other stuff, maybe reinterpreting what you're saying and seeing what you thought of it. Um, Willful evolution. When you mentioned Lamarckian evolution, the idea that one organism, through its life experience, can pass on that experience somehow in the genes to its young. And that obviously doesn't seem to be the case, at least not genetically, because Lamarck was only talking about biological evolution. And I think what's interesting when we get to human beings, what we start to see is either you could call it the willful evolution or the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of mind, the evolution of culture. Um, and when we get to that level, all of a sudden, life experience can be passed on because culture works in memes instead of genes, and memes are they spread a lot faster, and um, they shape the way we look at the world. And like you said, our philosophy, our basic perspective of the world is always changing as consciousness evolves. And I think it evolves because our perspectives are constantly getting wider and wider, more all-encompassing, more complex. We're becoming more aware of the intricacies of not only the physical world, but of biology and even of ourselves. The study of man has never been more advanced than it is now. We know so much about human history, and it's really speeding up our evolution even more. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the evolution of consciousness and how, I mean, you were applying it to the way we govern and run our societies and getting rid of hierarchies and stuff. Um, I don't know if hierarchy is necessarily a bad thing because there's always going to be people that are better at doing certain things than others. And I guess that could work out in more of a organically dispersed, holistic system where each person did what they were best at doing and they all worked together and whatnot. Um, but in the sense that people, even alive right now, I mean, consciousness evolves, but it doesn't evolve in everybody at the same time. Certain sectors um, of society develop more holistic, more all-encompassing views and understandings of the world than do other sectors. For example, there's still third world countries where people don't get an education and they don't reach the same level of consciousness as someone who lives in the Western developed world and got, went to a good elementary, middle, high school, and on into college, and really got an education. They're going to be at a higher level of consciousness and a higher level of awareness than other people, and that's always going to be the case. Until there's a utopia and every child on the planet gets a grade A education, we can't all be on the same, not only intellectual level, but emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, and all these things require a certain um, a certain situation and context in which the individual has been raised, and also just a certain inherent quality of the individual themselves that allows them to reach these higher stages. So a hierarchy is always, I think we're always going to have some kind of hierarchy. The question is the hierarchy justified or not? And I think, is the hierarchy gaining its power because of fear, because the upper realms of the hierarchy are, waving the sword at the people below them, or is it because of love? Because power can be either fear-based or love-based. And I think if it's based on love, that just means everybody agrees on this hierarchical structure, and the people who have who are in the upper echelon, they don't abuse their power because of the high level of consciousness that they have evolved, and everybody agrees on this. And so the power structure is one based on communion and love instead of this fear factor. A couple of things you said about evolution. I mean, you said evolution, the environment shapes our evolution. And I just wanted to say, I don't obviously that's true, but the uh, the organism itself also shapes the environment, and we always forget that. We think that the organism is just this passive observer and reactor that has to adapt to whatever the environment says. But really, if you go back to when life was first forming on planet Earth, microscopic bacteria are, some people theorize, what caused land to form, and they're also what caused the atmosphere to become so oxygen rich. Well, at first I think it was carbon dioxide rich, and then the plants evolved and created oxygen. And so life is integrally involved with what the environment does, as well as the environment being involved with what the organism becomes. It's a symbiosis, and it's you can't say that the organisms are just reacting to an objective environment, because there's feedback going back and forth between both, and so we're both shaping each other. As far as our philosophy shaping the world, we do have more of an influence over reality than we think we do, just based on the way we think about it. The way we think about ourselves, especially. We're sort of moving out of this Cartesian framework of separateness and egoic consciousness, subject-object. All that stuff is sort of falling away, I think. That's modernism's real point that really allowed us to develop out of the Middle Ages and a mythological religion, and it allowed science to develop, and our understanding of the world and the cosmos to really increase exponentially. But it's starting to hit a brick wall now, and I think the problem is that with the Enlightenment and the rise of modernism and this notion of that science could solve all of our problems, I think we've realized now that was a little bit naive, and there's sort of a re-spiritualization happening. I think people are realizing that not only that things are more interconnected, but that things are more mysterious than we thought, and that obviously the outdated Judeo-Christian tradition wasn't really working anymore, and it's a damn good thing that the Enlightenment happened and got us out of that trap. But I think the Enlightenment sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater, and by getting rid of God or any supernatural entities, and not that I think we should believe in supernatural entities, but when science threw out God, it threw out meaning as well. I'm think of that, the thinking man statue, the guy that's sitting on his chair with his chin, and he's actually looking down and thinking. And his head is, it's definitely, I think, the artist intended for him to be looking down. In other words, man in the Middle Ages was focused on heaven and transcendence, and realizing and understanding God's plan for human beings. And then rational scientific man comes and says, no, we got to study the earth, study nature, so he's facing down, and both of those are out of balance, I think. And I think our goal for the future of the evolution of human consciousness should be to sort of level this out and realize, wow, science can tell us a lot, but there's also this unknown, this whole cosmos out there that we are a part of, that we're an integral manifestation of, and we can't ever step outside of ourselves, of the universe, and view ourselves objectively to get objective knowledge about anything. Whether we like it or not, we're participating in something much more mysterious and much more vast and incomprehensible than science is usually willing to admit. So yeah, let me know what you thought about all this. Thanks for listening.